Hail and welcome, I am Kaiser Louis Philip V, coming to you today with a video blog, and if you're wondering why I'm wearing this big heavy jacket, it's because I've been out and about most of today. I do live in a rural area, and sometimes for a bit of extra money on the side when people are out, family, neighbors, relatives, what have you, I volunteer to take care of the stuff on their little farms, nothing really huge, you know, family farms. I take care of their animals and all that, and I check their property and do a bit of house sitting, all that good stuff when they're gone. And so that's why I'm in this big jacket. Also, because on a side note, I apparently this morning when I took a shower, I left the window open in my bathroom, and I did not really turn on the heater. As such, it is still very, very cold in my house. And I have cranked up the heater, and it is currently attempting to blast hot air through my house as quickly as possible. And I'm still in the jacket because I am still freezing. And also, if you're wondering about my hair, I've had a hat on most of the day, and this is the first time I've taken it off since I left the house, as when I came in earlier this evening. And I haven't even had a shower yet, really, or anything, so I'm just gonna come talk to you about what I came to talk to you about, which is Russia and the Ukraine. I've heard a lot of stuff about Russia kicking up dust lately, and I've stated my opinion before in my other blogs, which I will link in the description to you below for your convenience. However, with recent happenings, I think it's fair that I restate my opinion again. Otto von Habsburg is quoted as saying to his son, or perhaps grandson, Georg von Habsburg-Lothringen, who is very well known as a spokesperson for Europe and the EU in general, he said that a man who does not know the past and does not know the past cannot know the future, because he does not even know where he is, and something like he cannot know the past because if he does not know the past, he cannot know the future, because he does not know where he has come from or where he is going. So, something to that effect. But basically, you need to know history. I didn't want to use the same, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it, kind of thing, because that really didn't apply. But I think it's very relevant when we're talking about Russia here, at least as a spokesperson for a Catholic group with followers all over the world. I have people all over Europe, according to my Facebook at least, my page manager stuff. I have people from all over the world pretty much, which is pretty shocking to me at least. Of course, our largest concentration is North America because it is a North American Facebook page, so I assume that's where it gets the most hits. Anyway, and for me, I'm always leery about Russia because Russia really is, in terms of their history with the Western world and with Catholic Christendom, they come out of the East every so often like an Asiatic horde and, look for warm waters for their ships and for land that isn't a frozen wasteland to grow their food. And, I can understand that, but at the same time, that usually spells doom for Catholics who are in their way, notably the Poles, or right now, Eastern Ukrainians. And it's no secret, it's been reported on by multiple reputable news outlets, that when Russia went into Crimea, there was a large outbreak of persecution coming from the Orthodox population in Crimea, aided by separatist rebels and overlooked by Russian authorities, of attacks, kidnappings of Catholic persons, vandalism, and many other things. And this was a great sign of distress for me. Me personally, I understood why Putin would invade Crimea. The revolutionary government of Ukraine and Svoboda would not uphold his previous treaty agreements. So he had to secure his assets before Ukraine had the bright idea to seize them. Totally understand that. The U.S. would do the same in any country where there was a sudden revolution and they had a base there and they told us, you can't be here anymore. Well, we're going to secure our assets, however it is we have to do that. And, anyone who told us to do otherwise, we'd say to hell with you. So I can understand why Russia would initially go into Ukraine, into Crimea at least. However, their conduct in Crimea has been a little less than respectable and a little less than noteworthy, at least in my humble opinion. the persecution of Catholics, the eviction of the Tartars, several other actions, widespread reports of abuses. Some may or may not be true, but I can confirm, at least regarding the Tartars and the Ukrainian Catholic population, that there have been a lot of problems. I also linked within the past couple of days to my Tumblr and to my Facebook an article talking about how Russian state power is currently standing in the way of any possible unity talks between the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church. Because, as usual, the Orthodox Church tends to differentiate towards state power or to its host country when involved in any sort of politics, to the point that not Ukrainian, but other Orthodox churches of different countries will declare anathema on the other or have some kind of dispute with the other one during a time of war, in which case they have absolutely no problems fighting each other. Whereas among Catholics, it's generally regarded bad for Catholic nations to fight each other. Orthodox nations tend to be much more willing to do so, particularly whenever it involved the Byzantines or the Russians, considering they viewed the Russians and the Byzantines as being inheritors of Rome's legacy. Don't ask me how that works, because I don't know, and most mainstream historians who are not Orthodox don't understand how that works either. But moving on. Whereas the Catholic Church, they tend to differentiate unto themselves because the Catholic Church has always stood itself apart from most Western powers and has always tried to be its own entity, many times to its own political detriment. It can be argued that if the Papal States had simply dissolved away and allowed the Italian city-states to carve up their territory, the Papal States might have had much fewer scandals and possibly been able to focus more on its job as a spiritual leader. However, that also would have led to the detrimental breaking of Christendom, of the Catholic Church as a temporal power, and would have removed it as as a mediator and a arbiter in European politics. And we've seen how badly it has worked out in Europe when there's no central arbiter of its problems. It quickly devolves into nationalist outbursts of rage, which can then consume entire continents in massive wars of land grabbing and old treaty agreements, and etc., etc. We've seen it, we've heard it, we all know it happens. So, in regards to Russia and the Ukraine, again, I get Russia taking Crimea. However, the move to invade the rest of the Ukraine, seemingly, however, there has been no official, there is an invasion on. There have been rumors that Russia is once again moving troops and supplies into eastern Ukraine, and even reports of artillery shellings. This is very troublesome and very worrying. Now, Russia, from what I've understood Putin and from what I've understood others, Russia's basic reasoning for invading Ukraine is that Russians in Ukraine are persecuted in the same way Tumblr thinks fat people are persecuted in modern America. They are not in charge, they don't call the shots, and therefore that's cause enough for persecution. Because Russians, who can't seem to make anything that works outside of an assault rifle and a couple of tractors, is apparently the master race of the entire planet. I find that about as much of a legitimate claim as the claim to the German master race, when we all know for a fact that Italians had conquered two-thirds of the known world when the Germanian people were living in straw huts. Any kind of master race theory, to me at least, is pretty bupkis, as it implies that one race has all the core values that any human being can ever hope to possess, and no others do. And anybody who has studied history outside of their own ethnic group should very quickly realize that that is absolute bupkis. But in fact, even the Russian people, in their hardy nature, which has proved invaluable to their infantry corps in every single incarnation of the Russian military, going back to the Grand Duchy of Moscow, goes to show that they do indeed have very valuable virtues, and they are a very worthwhile people. Even as I may become enraged at Russia's past actions, I will not say anything to the effect that Russians need to be just absolutely exterminated as an inferior people. No. I think they need to clean up their act a bit, and I don't think anyone could disagree with that. But basically, Putin wants to annex Ukraine on the grounds that the revolutionary government does not support or offer any kind of legal standing to Russian citizens, and that Russian citizens living in Ukraine want to be a part of Russia. To that I say, move to Russia. I don't see why, if they so desperately want to be a part of Russia, they would not just move to Russia instead of trying to disrupt a currently existing nation-state. That seems unfair to the Ukrainians living in the region, who have probably been living there just as long as you've been Russian. However, moving back to the main point, the thing I'm really concerned about here is the fact that, you know, again, I tend to be biased towards Catholics and to the Catholic Church and Catholic cultures because that is what I focus on with my page. Russia in the past, with the wars with Poland and with other Catholic nations, does not have a history of being particularly kind or particularly tolerant toward Catholics in countries even where they have been living there longer than there has been an Orthodox Church. So I'm very concerned about the future of these people groups who, much like Christians now in the Middle East, and much like Christians living in Israel, have no voice, have no temporal guardian, and have no one running to their aid, and at many times they are confused when their Western brethren seem to suggest that the solution to their problem of radical extremists pointing guns at them, killing them, kidnapping and raping their daughters and wives is dialogue. Yes, I would be very confused too if someone told me while I was being robbed at gunpoint that perhaps I should try talking my current would-be mugger out of stealing the $60 in my wallet and beating the stuffing out of me in the process just because he doesn't like fat white people. So, with that in mind, I think we have to go forward, especially Catholics, keeping our ears to the ground in regards to the situation of Catholics in these countries where Russia's moving. If Russia, a lot of conservatives are really camping hard on Russia and Putin being the savior of the conservative world. Many white supremacists are seeing him as the new champion of the white race, a la Hitler. Even many Catholic conservatives I've seen and reactionaries are seeing him as the potential savior of Christendom. You do realize that the Orthodox see the entirety of the Holy Roman Empire as an affront to the Byzantine one and to the Russian Empire, seeing themselves as the true inheritors to the Roman legacy. I promise you, any nice artwork of Charlemagne that you happen to enjoy in your daily travels across Europe will swiftly be destroyed in the advent of a Russian invasion. And the Russians don't need to outright destroy things. They will claim it was an earthquake or something like that, and then the fire trucks in the process of saving the buildings from fires will actually destroy them. We all know that's what any Orthodox who, remembers and is a student of history should know. That is precisely what the USSR did to Orthodox churches in Russia. And we will see this repeated on Catholic churches in the Western world should Russia get as far as, say, Poland or Germany or France. And I don't think Putin's stupid. He's a former KGB agent. One of the things the KGB did was plant provocateurs and cells in other countries to start communist revolutions, and then the new government would be oh so conveniently allied to the USSR. Putin is no stranger to this game. Believe me, I know for a fact that if he was to invade America and Obama was still the president, he would send his agents to various conservative cells in the country who are armed, who have expressed at times admiration for Putin, and tell him, if you guys help us overthrow your current president, we'll let you keep all your cozy freedoms, and we'll even give you a nice bit of land and money and shiny new weapons to boot. Believe me, it will happen. How do I know it will happen? Because the U.S. has done similar things in other countries that they've wanted to do to engage in military adventurism in. Basically, every empire ever who has wanted to engage in military adventurism or invade another country has relied on disloyal cells or groups within those countries to gain any kind of leverage over their opponents. The British, during the War of 1812, used Native Americans to act as a guerrilla force to harass and attack the Americans to the point of even raiding peaceful settlements and villages that were nowhere near military targets. The French also did the same thing during the French and Indian War to the then British colonists that would then become America in the future, which would explain the American animosity during the 19th and 18th centuries towards Native Americans. They were seen as flaky, and they were seen as flaky allies and almost always possible enemies to anyone who came along with a foreign flag, enough money, liquor, and guns. Not saying that's true of Native Americans today. It is most certainly not, as we have proved with invaluable Native American allies to America, such as the Navajo Code Talkers. We've certainly gotten beyond any sort of delusions that Native Americans are waiting at any moment to go across the plains and, destroy suburban America. I think we're very much beyond that. However, we're not beyond a world where Russia, in an event where it declares war on the U.S., gets its little fingers into pockets of anti-American movements who may just be sympathetic to Putin, who may end up being insurgents for the cause of Russia. And personally speaking, I don't trust the American people to keep their cool when the enemies are in their backyard. So, what I'm confused about is why exactly Catholic groups of all people, I don't care about anybody else really, but I'm going to talk to my people here. Catholics, what are you doing? Why would you ally yourself with a man who doesn't even give legal rights to your religion within his country? Why would you want the values of a country where Catholicism has been treated as alien and perverse for hundreds of years to be the dominant superpower in the world? Why would you trust people who, in the past, were the premier source of Catholic persecution in the modern world? Why would you, considering the history of Orthodox relations with Catholic nations and even non-Catholic ones who had large Catholic populations, why would you trust them with your future? What makes you think that after you've been used to achieve Russia's ends, your children and grandchildren won't find themselves completely stripped of their religion, living under the boot of a foreign power? Is that the future you want? Do you really expect Russia to let you have any sort of fondness for these Western kingdoms? No. They'll take down that Austrian flag you have and replace it with the Russian imperial one. And if you don't, well, they might just hang you with it. I could go on to describe the numerous other things Russians like to do to political dissidents, but I, for one, have just eaten and don't feel like upsetting my stomach or anyone else's with thoughts of those kinds of things. People, we can't trust Russia. I understand why conservatives, especially Catholic reactionaries, would be very willing to find any kind of person that they can ally with, or can be their spokesman, or can be their talking guy, somebody who looks like they can represent them. But the hard truth we have to accept is that nobody on the current world stage, barring a massive administrative change or some kind of revolution that is legitimate, is going to come help us. We are on our own. We have always been on our own. That's why when the Western Empire fell, Pope Leo had the presence of mind to crown Charlemagne, leader of the most powerful nation in Western Europe at the time, Holy Roman Emperor. Because the Byzantines were certainly not going to fly all the way over to Western Europe and help us with our problems. They were going to leave us to die and leave us to rot, just as they had done when they had tried to move the See of Peter from Rome to Constantinople. They had given up on us and were turning in on themselves. That is the main difference between Catholics and Orthodox, I think. Catholics have an international interventionist mindset when it comes to the world around them. They go out boldly to evangelize and to intervene and to help others. Orthodox nations have a tendency to look inward, be very isolationist, and then have the nerve to ask for help from other people when they would never give it where the place has changed, and even when, in fact, in the past, they had hurt the people they are now asking for help from. Or when those people show up to help, they're surprised when the people that are coming to save them have any kind of pretext of superiority at all, and then they try to pound that out of them, and then they're surprised again when those same people don't want to help them at all. So in closing, I want to remind everybody, remember your history. Keep your mind open, because right now, we are really running the risk of having the wool pulled over our eyes, and by an Orthodox leader of all people. Yeah, Putin allows other religions in his country, namely Buddhism and Islam and Judaism, but you're really kidding yourself if you think he has a bias or a preference or even an appreciation for any religion other than Eastern Orthodoxy. And in his perfect view of Russia as an international superpower, as a world leader, as the premier world power, and as the defender of all things orthodox and moral, whose definition of moral and good do you think he's going to abide by?